When the 7th of October arrives, something within you begins to shift, not because the date itself is magical, but because it carries a silent reminder. Healing does not begin when you find answers. It begins when you stop resisting what has already happened. You've carried the weight of the past for so long that you've mistaken pain for identity. The things that broke you, the moments that disappointed you, the people who left without explanation, they became the story you told yourself over and over again. But on this 7th of October, that story no longer belongs to you. This day asks you to stop fighting the memories that keep you trapped in yesterday. Healing starts the moment you stop trying to rewrite the past and begin to accept that it cannot be undone. What was said. What was lost was meant to leave. Every time you revisit the pain, you relive it, and every time you relive it, you delay your growth. You can't move forward while still holding hands with your wounds. The 7th of October whispers to you that resistance is the real suffering, not the event, not the person, not the moment, but the way you continue to hold it close as proof of who you are. This day is not about forgetting, it's about releasing. There's a difference. Forgetting means erasing, but releasing means transforming. You don't heal by pretending it never happened. You heal by saying, yes, it happened, but it doesn't define me anymore. The 7th of October is the moment where you take back your power, where you reclaim the energy that has been frozen in old emotions. Because every ounce of resistance keeps your power stuck in the past, and every act of acceptance releases it back into the present. There's a quiet strength in surrender, not the kind that makes you weak, but the kind that makes you whole. To surrender on this 7th of October means to stop arguing with life. It means to stop replaying conversations in your head that will never change. It means to stop wondering why things happened the way they did. The truth is, they happened because they had to. They happened to reveal parts of you that would never awaken without loss, without confusion, without chaos. Sometimes what feels like breaking is simply transformation disguised as pain. You've been trying to heal by controlling, by analyzing, by explaining. But real healing doesn't ask for control, it asks for allowance. It asks you to sit in stillness and feel what you've avoided. It asks you to breathe through the discomfort until the fire burns itself out. And when you stop resisting, you'll realize the pain was never your enemy. Your resistance to it was. The 7th of October invites you to lay your armor down, to stop trying to fix what's already perfect in its imperfection, to understand that healing is not becoming something new, but remembering who you were before the world told you to be afraid. This day carries the energy of renewal. It carries the silent power of endings that turn into beginnings. You may not see it yet, but something that once felt broken is being rebuilt in a higher form. The peace you've been chasing is not out there. It's in the space that opens once you stop fighting your past. The storm begins to settle when you stop feeding it with your attention. The wound begins to close when you stop touching it with regret. On this 7th of October, that truth reveals itself in every breath you take. You are not your mistakes. You are not the stories people told about you. You are not the person who suffered. You are the person who is learning to rise from it. You are the stillness that remains when everything else falls away. The 7th of October stands as a symbolic threshold, a point where your old self dissolves and your true self begins to surface. Not the one built from fear, but the one born from acceptance. The one who doesn't need to understand every detail of life, but trusts that every piece had its purpose. There's a moment that comes when you realize healing was never about becoming untouched by pain. It was about allowing pain to touch you and still choosing peace. That's the wisdom this day brings. It's the moment you see that what once shattered you also shaped you. The past did not come to destroy you, it came to awaken you. It came to strip away illusions, to clear the space for clarity, to remind you that your strength is not in holding on. It's in letting go with grace. On the 7th of October, life gives you another chance to choose differently, to stop resisting your own becoming, to stop chasing what has already served its purpose, to stop punishing yourself for being human. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to release. You are allowed to be free. The pain that once defined you is dissolving, and in its place, a quiet calm begins to rise, not from outside, but from within. That is the rebirth. That is the transformation. That is what healing truly looks like. And as this day unfolds, you begin to understand that healing is not a destination, but a decision to stop running from what hurt you and to face it with open eyes and open heart. The past cannot be changed, but your relationship with it can. That's the moment when what you thought was lost forever begins to return, not as it was, but as wisdom, as peace, as freedom. This is the gift of 7th October, the day you finally stop resisting the past and start living in your own light again. On the 7th of October, there comes a quiet truth that many ignore their entire lives. The truth that healing begins when you finally release the weight of what could have been. For so long, you have carried the shadow of missed chances, unspoken words, and the dreams that never came true. You've built a home inside your regrets, visiting them every day as if they still have something left to offer. But they don't. They are echoes, memories of doors that closed for a reason. This 7th of October calls you to stop standing at those closed doors. It's time to turn around. Every could have been is a chain. You might not see it, but it holds you in the same place, replaying old scenes, imagining better endings. You think you're learning from the past, but often you're just reliving it. The pain doesn't stay alive on its own. You feed it every time you imagine how things should have gone. This is the moment to stop feeding the illusion. The 7th of October marks the day where you breathe out the word enough, enough of rewriting what is already written, enough of giving your peace to moments that no longer exist, enough of believing your life ended with a missed opportunity. What if you understood that everything you lost was never meant to stay? The person who left, the job that didn't come, the chance that slipped away. They were not the destination, only part of the road. You think you lost something precious, but you only lost the version of yourself that was attached to it. The 7th of October stands as a symbol of maturity, a crossing from wanting control to embracing trust. When you stop trying to hold on, you begin to rise. When you stop chasing what could have been, you begin to live what X can be. You've been taught to fight for everything. Fight for love, fight for dreams, fight for recognition. But not everything is meant to be fought for. Some things must be released with grace, because clinging to them means dragging dead energy into your future. The 7th of October reminds you that there's power in walking away without anger, without resentment, without needing to be understood. When you release, you don't lose. You clear space. You open the path for something that aligns with who you are now, not who you used to be. Letting go doesn't mean weakness. It means strength that comes from awareness. It means trusting that if something was truly yours, it would not have left. It means understanding that peace is worth more than proving a point. The 7th of October teaches that real growth happens when you stop holding onto almosts, because almost is the enemy of peace. It's the space where your mind builds illusions, where your heart replays endings, where your soul feels trapped in what never fully bloomed. But when you decide to let go, the illusion breaks and you return to the clarity of now. You have to understand, healing is not about winning against your past, it's about surrendering to it. Every time you let go of what you thought you needed, life replaces it with what you truly deserve. The universe never leaves empty hands for long. It just waits for you to release what's no longer meant to be there. The 7th of October carries this message. The things that left your life were not punishment. They were direction. You were never being denied. You were being redirected. There's a peace that comes when you stop asking why, You no longer chase answers that only deepen confusion. You no longer look for closure from people who are still lost themselves. You no longer build futures out of broken pieces. You accept. You breathe, you trust, and with every breath, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was stuck in yesterday. This is what freedom feels like, not the absence of pain, but the absence of attachment to it. The 7th of October is a mirror. It shows you what you've been clinging to, what you've been trying to control, what you've been afraid to release. It asks you one thing: are you ready to stop looking backward? Because only then can life bring forward what's waiting for you. And you are not the mind. The door you've been afraid to close is the one blocking the light from entering. Once it shuts, you'll see the room fill with warmth again. You'll feel the air move differently. You'll breathe deeper. That's what letting go feels like. Not loss, but relief. This day carries a new energy. It invites you to stop replaying the same story and start writing a new one. To forgive yourself for the choices that led nowhere. To forgive others for not being who you needed them to be. To accept that sometimes things fall apart because your soul asked for expansion. The 7th of October is not about mourning what could have been. It's about celebrating what still can be. The future does not open until you release the past that keeps your hands full. You have walked through enough storms. You have shed enough tears over what didn't work. This is the day to rest in acceptance, to feel the peace that comes with letting go. The weight that's been pressing on your chest begins to fade the moment you stop resisting the truth. That some endings are the kindest gifts life gives. Because every ending clears the path for renewal. Every goodbye carries the seed of a new beginning. On the 7th of October, that seed begins to grow inside you. It's quiet, it's unseen, but it's real. As you let go of what could have been, you make room for what was always meant to be. You become lighter, freer, more aligned. The heart that once ached becomes a compass again. The path ahead opens. And you finally see that nothing was ever truly lost. It was simply transformed into wisdom. This is the power of release. This is the healing of the 7th of October. The 7th of October stands as a turning point, a day that teaches you the truth hidden inside every loss. What you once thought was destruction was never meant to end you. It was meant to shape you. Everything you lost, everything that slipped away when you weren't ready, every door that closed when you begged for it to stay open, all of it carried a hidden lesson. On this day, life whispers to you that nothing was wasted. The pain was not a punishment, it was preparation. You see, life doesn't take without reason. It removes what no longer serves your path, even when your heart isn't ready to understand it. The 7th of October is not about mourning what's gone. It's about finally seeing the purpose behind it. The heartbreak that once shattered your peace taught you the meaning of boundaries. The disappointment that left you empty taught you self-reliance. The failure that humiliated you taught you humility. The silence that made you anxious taught you to listen within. Every loss was a message. You just needed time to translate it. The problem is that most people stop at the pain. They stay stuck in the emotion, thinking that's the end of the story. But the 7th of October arrives to remind you the pain was never the final chapter. It was the test before transformation. Every wound that you thought was breaking you was, in truth, sculpting you. It stripped away illusions, false attachments, and shallow desires. It burned away the unnecessary so that what's essential could rise. You are not who you were before the loss, and that's the point. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in collapse. There comes a moment when you begin to see that what hurt you most also revealed who you truly are. The losses you feared were taking everything from you were actually giving you back to yourself. They forced you to stop depending on what was temporary and to discover what was eternal inside you. The 7th of October marks the moment you finally stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start realizing it happened for me. That shift changes everything. Life is a teacher that often speaks through endings. When you lose something or someone, you are being invited to rise above attachment. You are being asked to build your strength on the inside instead of depending on the outside. This is why some things fall apart, not because you failed, but because you outgrew them. The 7th of October reveals this simple truth. Loss is not absence, it's transformation. It's energy taking a new shape. What feels like breaking is simply change in motion. Look closely at your own path. Every hardship carried something sacred. The job that rejected you pushed you toward your real purpose. The person who left gave you the space to meet yourself. The situation that collapsed freed you from an illusion you didn't know was keeping you small. These were not accidents. They were awakenings disguised as pain. The 7th of October asks you to look back not with regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude for what you became because of what you lost. When you accept this, something powerful happens. The bitterness fades. The resentment dissolves. You stop fighting life and begin to flow with it. You stop seeing loss as unfair and begin to see it as a teacher. You understand that every time something is taken from you, something deeper is being given. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the form you expect, but always in alignment with your growth. The 7th of October is the moment when this truth finally sinks into your bones. That nothing real can ever be lost, and nothing lost was ever truly real. You have walked through fire, and the fire didn't destroy you. It revealed your strength. The ashes you stand in are not the end, but the soil for your rebirth. Every ending carries a beginning inside it. Every tear that fell watered the seeds of your next chapter. You may not see it yet, but something is already growing inside the emptiness. The 7th of October carries this energy of rebirth. Quiet, patient, unstoppable. This is the day to stop identifying with your wounds. You are not the broken story, you are the lesson that came from it. You are the clarity that emerged when the noise faded. You are the wisdom born from endurance. The things you lost made space for your evolution. What you thought was gone forever didn't disappear. It transformed into resilience, into awareness, into strength that no one can take from you again. That's what healing looks like. That's what this day represents. Every loss refines your soul. It strips you down to what's essential, and from that rawness, your real power begins to emerge. You stop needing to be saved because you realize you already survived what once felt impossible. The 7th of October reminds you that you were never broken. You were being rebuilt. Every scar is evidence of wisdom earned. Every ending was part of your initiation into wholeness. Now, as this day unfolds, you are being asked to see your past through new eyes. Not as a story of pain, but as a story of awakening. Not as tragedy, but as transformation. Everything you lost gave you something far more valuable: awareness, depth, maturity, and compassion. You learned to stand alone, to find peace in silence, to trust timing instead of fear it. That is the real gift. On this 7th of October, stand still and acknowledge how far you've come. You survived what you thought you couldn't. You grew from what once tried to break you. You rose again, stronger and quieter, with a deeper understanding of life. What you lost was never truly gone. It became the foundation of who you are now. That is the lesson this day brings. Every loss was a teacher, every fall was a preparation, and every ending was guiding you toward yourself. The 7th of October arrives like still water after a long storm. It carries a silence that feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, because you've spent too much time running, fixing, chasing, and proving. But this day does not ask you to do more. It asks you to stop searching outside, to stop running from yourself, to stop trying to heal through noise. On this day, healing begins when you return to stillness, when you finally sit with yourself and listen to what your soul has been trying to say beneath all the distractions. You have mistaken movement for progress. You have filled your days with endless noise, thinking that the more you do, the faster you'll heal. But healing doesn't happen through motion. It happens through presence. The 7th of October invites you to understand that growth is not always loud, not always visible, not always filled with action. Sometimes it's found in the quiet moment when you finally face what you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's found in a single deep breath that allows you to simply exist without needing to control anything. The truth is, your energy heals when you stop forcing it. You can't rush recovery. You can't fight your way to peace. And the more you try to fix what's inside through action, the more chaos you create. The 7th of October teaches the art of stillness, the kind that doesn't mean doing nothing, but being everything. It's the stillness of awareness, the stillness that comes when you no longer chase answers, but allow them to surface on their own. When you sit in stillness, the noise of the mind begins to fade. All the what ifs, the fears, the regrets, they lose their grip. You begin to hear the truth beneath the surface, that everything you were searching for has always been within you. Peace was never missing. It was buried under overthinking, under restlessness, under the need to be in control. The 7th of October is the day you stop searching and start returning to your own center, your own breath, your own awareness. Stillness is not escape, it's courage. It's the willingness to meet yourself without distraction. It's looking into your pain instead of away from it. It's breathing through the chaos until it loses power. The 7th of October carries the message that healing is not about erasing what happened. It's about accepting it fully so it no longer controls you. When you sit in stillness, you realize that the storm was never outside. It was always within. And when you find calm within, no outside storm can shake you again. You don't heal by running to the next goal, the next achievement, the next person. You heal by sitting quietly with your own emotions until they soften. You heal when you allow silence to speak. You heal when you stop needing to explain your pain and simply feel it. The 7th of October reminds you that the answers you seek won't come from the world. They'll come from the space you create inside yourself. And that space only opens when you stop trying to fill it with noise. Your mind will resist this. It will tell you that you're wasting time, that you're falling behind, that you need to act. But this is the illusion. The more you chase, the more lost you become. Stillness is not the absence of progress, it's the foundation of it. The 7th of October marks the moment where you step out of the chaos of doing and into the peace of being. It's here where clarity is born. It's here where you begin to see that most of your suffering was self-created by resistance, by impatience, by overthinking. When you sit in stillness, your energy begins to balance. Your breath becomes your teacher. You realize that peace is not something you reach, it's something you remember. You don't have to fight for calm. You just have to stop feeding the noise. The 7th of October invites you to make peace with silence, to understand that silence is not empty. It's full of guidance, full of healing, full of truth. It's in silence where you finally meet your real self. This day asks you to observe instead of react, to listen instead of speak, to feel instead of escape. When you become still, you see how much energy you've wasted on things that never mattered. You see how much of your pain came from clinging to thoughts that were never real. You see that peace was always a choice you can make right now. The 7th of October becomes a reminder that every moment you choose stillness, you choose alignment. Every time you breathe consciously, you return to the truth of who you are. Healing through stillness doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It means living with awareness. It means moving slower but deeper. It means acting from presence instead of panic. When you embody stillness, you stop reacting to life and start responding to it. You become grounded, focused, unshaken. The 7th of October carries this sacred energy, the energy of balance, the energy that reminds you that peace is not something you chase, it's something you create. In stillness, you realize that every challenge you faced was designed to bring you back to this point, the point of awareness. the point where you finally see that life doesn't demand more effort, it demands more consciousness. The more you return to stillness and the more power you reclaim, you stop depending on circumstances for happiness. You stop expecting others to complete you. You become whole again. That is the gift of this day. On the 7th of October, allow yourself to pause. Allow yourself to breathe without rushing to fix anything. Sit with yourself long enough to remember who you are beneath the noise. The world will keep spinning, but you don't have to spin with it. Your healing doesn't come from motion, it comes from awareness. Your peace doesn't come from control, it comes from surrender. And the moment you return to stillness, you realize everything you've been searching for was already waiting for you within. This is the power, the peace, and the awakening of the 7th of October. The 7th of October carries a quiet promise, the understanding that what you lost will return, but not in the same form. Life does not restore what was taken by giving it back unchanged. It returns it evolved, transformed, aligned with the person you have now become. This day reminds you that the universe never subtracts without the intention to multiply later. What felt like an ending was simply a redirection, and now the time has come for restoration in a higher form. For too long, you have believed that healing meant getting back what you once had. You looked backward, waiting for the same faces, the same opportunities, the same emotions to return. But life doesn't move in reverse, it rebuilds forward. The 7th of October comes as a realization that your restoration will not mirror your loss. It will exceed it. The pain was never meant to return what you lost. It was meant to prepare you for something greater. What left your life left to make space for what was always meant to arrive. Everything that disappeared from your world, the people, the chances, the dreams served their purpose in a particular season of your life. They carried lessons you could only learn through their absence. And now, as the 7th of October unfolds, life begins to return what was taken, but this time in the form that matches your growth. What once was love that hurt you returns as peace within yourself. What once was rejection returns as clarity of purpose. What once was loss returns as inner strength. Nothing is wasted. Everything is reshaped. You have to understand that restoration is not repetition. The universe doesn't bring back what broke you. It brings you the wisdom to never need it again. That is the gift of this day, the moment you see that the void you've carried inside was never empty. It was being filled quietly, piece by piece. With understanding, the 7th of October marks the time when that unseen rebuilding becomes visible. You start to notice how your energy changes, how your heart softens, how your mind clears. You begin to realize that what was taken from you wasn't the end. It was the beginning of who you are becoming. When you stop trying to recreate the past, you make space for what's new. Life cannot fill hands that are still holding on to what's gone. The 7th of October asks you to release your grip on how things should look and trust how they are unfolding instead. The people who left did not take your peace with them. They simply exited the part of your story that no longer aligned with your becoming. The opportunities that slipped away did not close your path. They redirected you toward a better one. Everything that vanished from your life created the room for what's now on its way. This is the law of transformation. Nothing ever truly leaves, it only changes shape. The 7th of October reminds you that what you thought was gone forever has been quietly evolving in the unseen. It has been preparing itself to meet you again, not as it once was, but as something higher, purer, stronger. That's why you had to endure the emptiness, the silence, the waiting. Life needed time to match your energy with what you now deserve. Restoration doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it begins quietly. A shift in how you think, a calm in your heart, and a new opportunity that seems small but holds everything you've prayed for. The 7th of October is a turning point where you start to notice that the things that once broke you no longer have power over you. and you no longer crave what you lost. You feel gratitude for what it taught you. That's how you know the restoration has already begun, when you no longer want the old life back. There is a moment when you realize that the universe never takes without purpose. Even in your darkest hours, something was working behind the curtain, rearranging your path. The 7th of October carries that unseen movement. The moment when what was hidden begins to reveal itself, you start to see signs of alignment, synchronicities, opportunities that feel too perfect to be coincidence. These are not random. They are life's way of saying, you are ready now, ready to receive what you couldn't have understood before. The beauty of restoration is that it doesn't just give you back what was lost. It gives it back refined. The love you now attract will be deeper. The peace you feel will be stronger. The success that finds you will carry purpose. The 7th of October stands as a threshold between old energy and new alignment. It's the point where you finally stop asking when and start trusting now. Because restoration does not rush, it unfolds with divine timing. You might not recognize what's returning because it will look different. It's not supposed to look the same. That's how you'll know it's new, real, and meant for you. The 7th of October marks the moment where you stop trying to go back and begin to go forward. You start to see that what's coming is not a replacement, but a rebirth. You don't need to cling to the old when the new is carrying the same essence in purer form. Everything you once thought was gone forever, your peace, your purpose, your joy is returning. But now it's coming through a version of you that can sustain it. Before, you weren't ready to hold it. Before, your strength was still forming. The 7th of October is the moment you realize that the delay was never denial. It was preparation. You had to grow strong enough to receive what belongs to you without losing yourself again. This day is a reminder that life always restores, but never in the same shape. It restores with precision, with depth, with wisdom. You look back and realize that everything you once begged to keep was replaced by something better. Not because you deserved less before, but because you needed time to rise into who could truly handle more. As this 7th of October unfolds, you begin to see how beautifully life rearranges itself when you trust the timing. You start to feel peace instead of panic, gratitude instead of grief, calm instead of control. What was taken is returning, not as loss repaired, but as destiny fulfilled. You have entered the season of restoration, and it begins now. 7th October is not just another day passing on the calendar. It is a mark of transition, a sacred pause between what has been and what is yet to come. This moment stands as a mirror, not to show you who you were, but to reveal who you are becoming. Every life has moments like this, symbolic resets, quiet thresholds where something unseen begins to shift. On the 7th October, that shift begins within you. It is the moment when the old self steps aside and the renewed self begins to breathe. For too long, you may have carried weight that didn't belong to you anymore. Memories that repeat in your mind like echoes from another lifetime. Regrets that cling to your present like shadows. But life in its deepest wisdom never meant for you to live forever in yesterday. 7th of October comes to remind you that healing isn't about going back. It's about finally allowing the cycle to close. You are not returning to who you were. You are rising into who you are meant to be. When life takes something from you, it is not destruction, it is direction, it is movement, it is correction. And every ending carries within it a sacred beginning waiting for your awareness to catch up. You may not see it now, but life always restores, never in the same form, never in the same shape, but always in the same purpose. 7th October carries that promise. It whispers to you that nothing truly lost is ever wasted. Everything finds a way to return, transformed, reshaped, purified. This is why you must not fear the emptiness. Do not be afraid when something leaves your life. On a 7th October, the emptiness becomes a space for something pure to enter. What once felt like loss becomes the soil of renewal. You may think that something was taken, but in truth, it was only making room for the growth you had not yet imagined. Life cannot pour new wine into an old vessel. You must be emptied before you can be filled again. Many people fight this process. They cling to what was familiar even when it hurts. They try to rebuild what has already ended out of fear that nothing new will come. But 7th October teaches a different lesson, the art of surrender. It is the day you release control, the day you stop chasing what has already completed its purpose. When you let go, you stop resisting the natural rhythm of the universe. The tides cannot rise if they are not allowed to fall first. The tree cannot bloom unless it first sheds its leaves. This is the essence of renewal, to trust the unseen, to walk forward even when you don't see the whole path. The mind wants evidence, but the heart already knows. Somewhere deep within, there is a quiet certainty that all things are unfolding exactly as they must. On a 7th October, that certainty awakens. It tells you to stop asking when life will give back what it took, and instead to prepare yourself to receive what is coming. Because what returns after a season of loss is never the same thing. It's always something deeper, stronger, more aligned with your truth. Perhaps you lost people, opportunities, or dreams that once defined you. But 7 October invites you to see that those things did not define your essence. They only revealed it. The pain refined you. The waiting strengthened you. The silence taught you how to listen. And now the same life that once broke you is ready to rebuild you, not from the outside, but from within. You are not being given back what was taken. You are being restored to what was always yours: peace, purpose, and inner clarity. When life restores, it doesn't announce it with noise, it comes quietly. It moves through moments of calm awareness, a decision made from strength, a thought released without bitterness, a morning where your heart feels lighter for no reason. These are not coincidences. These are the first signs of renewal. 7th October opens that energy. It is the reset button of the soul, the invisible door that only opens when you stop knocking on the old one. There will be times when you question if anything is really changing. The transformation that happens on a 7th October may not be visible immediately, but healing rarely announces itself. It builds in silence. Life will not restore everything overnight, but it will begin, one shift at a time, one realization at a time. Until one morning, you wake up and realize you are no longer the same. You no longer crave what hurt you, and you no longer wait for what has already left. That is when you know the healing has done its work. The universe does not return things in their old form because you are no longer the same person who lost them. The love that comes will be deeper,